Hey guys, and we're there. Oops, I forgot my hat. How you guys doing? Welcome to Massive Iron Live. Welcome to Friday, April 5th. We made it. We got about 10 days till tax time here in America. I need to get my stuff together. See, no hair. Hat, no hat. Didn't want to scare you guys with the no hat, right? That would be terrifying. How you guys doing? Welcome to Massive Iron Live. We're here to talk lifting. We're here to solve your problems. We're here to answer your questions. This exists for you guys. So if you are new here, please don't hesitate to post up a question. I'm here to help. Post up as many questions as you want. If you're new, don't be shy. Don't feel like a question's been asked 1,000 times before. I'm here to help you guys. For anyone new to the video, my name is Steve Shaw, and this is Massive Iron. And maybe you just stumbled upon this randomly. Hope you guys are having a good week. I had a good training week so far. Had a good shoulder session last night. I'm doing pin presses, seated pin presses. So I got that yesterday to 200 for 3 sets, 10, 10, and 9 reps. Almost got the 10th rep. That went really good. My seated pin press is almost up to 300 pounds. And I'm really happy for that because will be 57 in October, so my strength is holding steady. I'm really excited for that. Now, before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping notes. If your questions don't go through, try rephrasing them. Sometimes YouTube will filter things based on the words. That's not me filtering you. So try rewording things. Sometimes longer comments or questions won't go through. So if that is the case, just try shortening things a little bit. And if that doesn't work, you guys can always go over to Instagram at Ben the Barman and DM me your questions. I'm always there to help. I answer every question. In fact, right before we started, I was answering a couple of Instagram questions. So my sinuses are a little bit whacked up today. I'll try to make it through. I don't know why it's been such crazy change of weather. My sinuses just lock up, and sometimes it's hard for me to breathe when my nose locks up, and we'll power through. So how you guys been going? How things been going? You guys been training hard? What workout you guys using? How the old bulks and cuts going? Let's get into things. Let's see what we got for the week, shall we? Where are we at? Paladin. Now, before I get started, guys, I forgot. I want you guys to consider joining teammassiveiron.com, teammassiveiron.com. We have an amazing community, and we'd love to have you. So at least give it a check, teammassiveiron.com. And if you need coaching, I'm pretty full right now, but you can check it out at superlivingtheday.com. All right, now I just got to get that thing off. There we go. Paladin, what would be the exercises, sets, and reps be if you were to design a chest and back day? I don't have time to design a full workout, but you would obviously start with a barbell exercise for chest. You would do a dumbbell exercise for chest, maybe a machine for chest, and then you could do a machine or barrel press for chest, and then you can round it out with an isolation of choice. And sorry, guys, my sinuses are really struggling today. I cannot breathe out of my nose. It's just making breathing very difficult, so I'm going to try to hang in there. For back, what I usually do is start with deadlifts. And then I'll alternate second lift between a dumbbell and barbell row. And then the lifts I like to personally get in are a seated cable row or lat pull down or pull up. If you don't like the seated row, you can do a machine row. So that's just kind of a general schedule. But you have to use a reasonable degree of potent exercises, things with a progression opportunity. So those are reasonable choices. And then after chest day, you could do triceps exercises and back day biceps exercises. If you check out my workouts on Team Massive or any of my workouts, pretty much everything is Cut and dried, that's where I start from. Very similar between workout to workout. If I'm doing 4 sets of an exercise, is it okay to use lower rep ranges for the first 2 sets? Well, it depends on what those exercises are and what your goal is at. I guess if you're looking at something like the power muscle block or burn system, lower rep ranges of 4 to 6 are fine for a couple of power sets, and then you can increase them a little bit. As long as your overall volume for the program is reasonable and you're focused on progressive overload, you're absolutely fine. Flat dumbbell bench, incline dumbbell bench, incline machine press and dips. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good exercise selection. You don't have a barbell in the mix, but that's not a sin. You have 4 big hitting exercises, so I don't have any issues with that. I would probably try to rotate in a barbell just for some variety. Maybe rotate in a barrel press just for some variety. But that's just, I like to rotate in some exercises for variety, but that's completely optional. You don't have to do that. And excuse me, guys, I'm having a really hard time breathing. My sinuses are absolutely locked up today, so just bear with me. What are some objective measures we can use to assess whether we are training hard enough? Are you focused on trying to maximize every set? In that realm, are you getting +1s? Are you making progress, right? Are we guessing at IRI, or are we taking at least 1 set for each exercise for as many reps as possible? It's really not complicated. Hard training is more of a feeling, and objectively, we can try to quantify it, but if you're not making progress, you're not trying to mentally get as much out of a set as you can. One thing I look for is during a set, is someone just speeding through their reps, or are they trying to get good mechanical tension out of it? You can pretty much tell if you watch someone, they're doing a lat pull down or they're doing a seated cable row and they're having a seizure, right? They look like the end goal is to sprint through the set rather than get the most out of the set they can. That's one of the biggest eyeball things you can use when you're looking at somebody in the gym, if they're just trying to chase reps. Or some people don't know, and we're not being critical, right? We're not being critical at all. But if you're doing a seated cable row and it just looks like this, right? There's no bracing, there's no focus, there's no mechanical tension. You need to lock in. You need to control the way down. We don't need to slow it. We don't need to do slow-mo reps. We don't need to count our, time under tension. We don't need to count our negative. But there has to be a degree of control, get a slight stretch in the back, and drive the elbows back, right? So we need a combination of control and power. One of the biggest things, and this is where a lot of lifters stop, and heck, yesterday when I was doing my seated pin press, I wanted to stop. Okay, after 38 years, this is not unique to beginning lifters. I am in the middle of a set and I want to stop because it feels hard. I was on rep 8 of my first set of seated pin press, and I'm like, I'm starting to feel flush. I'm starting to feel lightheaded, and I wanted to stop. But I had to keep going. You have to keep going as long as what you're doing is safe, right? You can't just stop because your body or your mind wants you to stop. That's one of the things we want to look for when it comes to hard training. I end up pushing my 3rd set to literal failure. That was the time to stop, right? There was no danger. There's really no danger in pressing. It's not like you're, unless you feel off, then you stop. Like a muscle feels off, or a tendon or connective tissue feels off, then you stop. But like this happens to me a lot on bicep curls, right? I'll be doing a curl and it'll start to get hard. My brain will say, stop. It'll just want me to stop. All right. Have you guys been here? You know what I'm saying? Like you're in the middle of a set and there's something just in your brain that wants you to stop. It doesn't make sense. It's just saying stop. And this is a lot of times where we stop. It doesn't have anything to do with being in danger or near injury or any muscles feeling off or anything feeling off. We just hear that little voice in our head that's trying to get us to stop. I get this a lot on dumbbell curls because I don't know if it's the fact that it's not my favorite lift, not my favorite body part to work, but I'll just be on like rep 8, rep 8. And a little voice in my head will say, stop, this hurts, right? And I can end up getting 12 reps, 13 reps, but it's super easy to stop far from that point. So of all the objective measures, if you got control in place, one of the biggest things is when you guys do hear that internal voice that says stop. You don't stop, right? You keep pushing. Not all the time. We're not perfect. We can't do it all the time. Sometimes I'm in the middle of battle. Cable tricep extensions, I'm on rep 11. It's the third set. Maybe I got a couple in the tank. My brain says stop, and I stop. And I walk away and I go, I stopped, right? Why? But if you're at 75 to 80% of the time where you're not stopping, it's okay. I mean, we can't be perfect. But having awareness when that happens and not stopping unless there's a reason. Now, if you're in the middle of a set and something feels weird on my chest, like one of the things I'm super paranoid about, and I'm not paranoid about a lot of things, but on bench, if anything feels weird in my connective tissue during a bench rep, I will pull back, right? I don't want a chest, I don't want a pec tear. I don't want anything like that. But unless you're feeling something like that, and the brain's just telling you to stop, you have to have an awareness of that, and you have to keep pushing. Does that make sense? That's where the real progress is made. And that's not the only thing that's valuable in a set. But over time, okay, here you are today on April 5th, okay? Let's say you're doing incline dumbbell curls with 30 and you stop at 8 because the brain wants you to stop. I want you to think about the long-term ramifications of this, okay? You stop at 8 because the brain wants you to stop, but let's say you could have gotten 11. All of a sudden, you're 3 reps in the hole. If you would have got 11, if you would have pushed, next week you'd be at 35s. Now, that weight difference, that volume difference, that tension difference, that difference between overall stress of 30 by 8 and next week 35 by maybe 9, you just set yourself back for months and maybe a year to come, okay? Because now you're still at 30 by 8. You could be at 35 by 9 or 10 next week, and you're behind where you should be, where you could have been. Does that make sense? So all of a sudden you're behind in tension, you're behind in volume, and you're listening to that voice that's saying stop, right? So we're behind and we're playing catch up. And each time you do that, each time you don't push yourself, you're one step behind. Now you add those up, maybe one set every 3 weeks where you stop early, And all of a sudden, you're 16 to 17 steps behind after the course of a year. 3 years, you're 50 steps behind. Okay. Now, this is going to happen, and we want to minimize those steps behind. But this is the difference, the long-term perspective that we have to take when we're building muscle. The guys that are maximizing the muscle building process, they're minimizing these stops. So just thinking about this again, because it's super important. You're in the gym today on incline dumbbell curls. You hit 8 reps on 30. You could have hit 11. I've been there before many times. Boom. I just set myself back one workout. Now, you do that 2-3 times a year, 4 times a year, no big deal. You're human. There's a little wiggle room in the mix. You do that every third workout, every second workout, every fourth workout over the course of 5 years, and all of a sudden your progress is dragging and lagging severely, and it's self-inflicted. Now, you take those same lifters, and they're not controlling the weight down during the eccentrics, right? They're just going through the motions. And all of a sudden, they're in 2 holes. They're behind on progress. They're behind on mechanical tension, okay, because they're just trying to knock out reps, and they're not trying to get the most out of that set. Now you take those lifters, okay, and they become inconsistent. They're missing a lot of workouts every week, or they're taking time off every 2 to 3 months, and all of a sudden they're in a bigger hole. So they're constantly trying to get back up to speed because of that. And then you add in the 4th major sin, which is no focused bulks. They're just kind of in a maintaining, plantating stage. And this is where the average lifter goes to die. It's really simple. Does that make sense? And I know this is a long answer, but this is a really interesting topic. And that's one of the beautiful things about live, is that you never know what topics you're going to get. And I really never know how I'm going to answer them. And this is the first time I've ever really combed through this type of scenario in this manner. And I think it really builds some perspective. So I hope it helped you guys a little bit. Soy sauce banana. If you use 5, 10, 10, 20, this is a bench protocol that I talked about. If you guys missed this, check out the video I did recently on the 5, 10, 10, 20. There's 2 protocols that I sometimes advocate: the 5, 10, 10, 20, which is a higher volume program or workout day, and a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is a more intense day. If you do this for a bulk, during a bulk, would you use a different protocol for a cut? During a cut, and if any of you guys need information, can't find this bench protocol, just DM me or email me, benthebarman@gmail.com. During a cut, we really don't want to dramatically change anything, right? We can go to straight sets. If our reps start to drop on a cut, then we have to back down and wait. The only thing you don't want to do is start a new training phase on a cut. You can either continue doing what you're doing and then back down and wait if it's required, or you can just go to something very simple like a 3s protocol or straight sets or whatever. Now, Trenny Powers, I was looking at this question before we hopped on. This will give you an aneurysm. So not. But once I do overhead press, I can't take my traps out of any rear or side delt movement afterwards. That's normal. If you are pushing that overhead press, leading the mix, you should have some fatigue in your rear and side delts. That's normal. That's what you want. That's why we continue. That's what you want. This is building work capacity. My side delts, last night I did pin press, they're fried. I had to give them about 5 minutes of rest, and then I went on to Arnold presses. Are Arnold presses going to track? Are the numbers going to be the same as if I let off my workout with Arnold presses? No, that's the point. We're not chasing numbers. We're chasing hard training. There's going to be a rate of decay. Compound movements like the overhead press, they're going to hit your traps, they're going to hit your rear delts, they're going to hit your side delts. And when you move on to the next exercise, there should be some form of fatigue if you're training hard enough. So let's establish that. So you program presses later in delt day because you're trying to avoid that fatigue. Okay, that's fine, as long as you're progressing. Like if you want to do side laterals first, and then maybe you want to do Arnold presses second, or whatever you're doing, or machine chest press, it doesn't matter as long as each movement is pushed hard for your, what we just talked about, hard training, and you have a progression indicator. So what you are doing is evolving training based on needs, right? Do I generally start a day with my overheads? Yes. Is there anything wrong with finishing with your overheads? No. I made a little bit of a short recently that discussed this. First, you learn the rules, right? What are the rules? You generally start with the biggest lift. Generally. Is this a rule that's you're going to be stricken down if you don't follow? No. First, you learn the rules, and then you learn hard training on the basics. You learn progression on the basics, and then you can break the rules. Okay? Are you guys following me? So if you want to do your overheads last in your program, that's fine, as long as you're attacking them, as long as they have a progression indicator, as long as you're not being a boo-boo baby and not progressing, that's fine. It's best to learn the rules or start with the basics. Start with the overhead press first, then do the dumbbell, and then do the machine, and then do the laterals. Start with convention. Lifting is like art. First, you have to master the basics, master the structures, master the rules, and then you break the rules to create art. This is one of the things in my book, Massive Iron, and one of the things in my new book, Massive, that is a pillar of success. You evolve your training based on needs. So I'm not going to have an aneurysm at all. You're using one of the pillars of success. You're modifying your program to fit you, okay? And as long as you are hard training, and as long as you have progressive overload, you're not giving me an aneurysm at all. You are lifting in the Massive Iron way. So amen. And 5 years from now, somebody in the gym is going to look at you and say, hey, Trenny Powers, Mr. Trenbolone Sandwich, why are you doing overhead press last? And that kid's going to be watching this channel or something from this channel or something from some other channel. He'll say the big, hairy, ugly dude said you should start with overhead first. Yes. That's where we all start. First, we learn the rules. We have the same common denominator, the same platform, the same baseline, right? You following me? And then once we start in there, we can start to modify things based on our preferences in the gym. And that's why every advanced lifter ends up with their workouts looking different. And that's why it doesn't make sense for us to follow the workout of an advanced lifter, because he's made all of these little maneuvers over the years to fit him that probably won't fit you. Dumbbells and donuts. Name one thing that you think the average lifter overthinks. And conversely, one thing you think the average lifter isn't giving enough attention to. Okay, so in general, the average lifter overthinks workouts. Program hopping, program hopping, program hopping. They'll get in a workout. There'll be one variable about the workout they don't like. Maybe it's too many days. Maybe it has a brutal leg day. Maybe it has an upper lower with 2 leg days. There'll be one variable of that program they don't like, so they'll hop. They'll just, instead of evolving that program, like, hey, I don't like this variable, they'll leave the program. For example, I have an upper posterior split where on posterior days, instead of doing upper lower, we do upper posterior. Upper is chest, shoulders, and arms. Posterior is legs and back. On a certain percentage, maybe a third, lifters will say, I don't like the posterior days. They're too brutal. That's fair. So a lot of times we'll keep the 2 upper days and we'll turn the posterior days into a leg and a back day, right? So instead of leaving the program, we evolve the program. Let's say you're doing a program that really excites you until you get into the gym and you realize Pendley rows for 4 sets of 10 are too brutal. So what does the average lifter overthink or do? They leave the program because of one variable. What they could do is modify it, just that one variable. So you are at a Pendley row or barbell row in a program and it has 4 sets of 10. You don't like that, so you leave the program. Instead of going to 3 sets of 6 or 3 sets of 8 for one variable, right? So I think the average lifter overthinks programming way too much. Maybe underthinks it. I don't know. I guess it's how you frame it. But I think that's the common thing. Lifters look too much at programs rather than the variables inside of the programs. This is something I've stated many, many times. Programs contain the same damn exercises. When you hop from program to program to program, you're hopping to the same damn exercises. Let's say you were a chef and you had 5 ingredients to work with. And you created 10 menu items from them. Okay? If you hop from if you didn't like one menu item, you're hopping to a different menu item, but it has the same damn ingredients. Right? So I don't know, that might be a bad analogy. But I hope you guys are following me. That we overthink workouts, and we should remember workouts contain the same damn exercises. And 90% of the exercises are the same. I mean, if you move from coach to coach, they're going to have a little bit of difference in their preferred exercises, right? But the average lifter, I think, overthinks this a little bit too much and jumps programs into a program with the same exercises, right? Like, what are we doing? I'm not being critical. I'm saying, what are we doing? We need to stop. We need to think a little bit more about that. Maybe a little bit underthinking. So, what do I think they're not giving enough attention to? Nutrition. And this is something when you say, nail your nutrition. The average lifter is like, yeah, I'm nailing I'm eating the same amount of calories. Eat my chicken and rice and broccoli. I'm eating. No, lifting during a bulk, lifting for muscle building, nutrition for muscle building, nutrition involving a bulk is a very specific regulated thing. And the more you nail your bulks during building or massing phases, the more you are facilitating a smooth road that's going to facilitate muscle gains. Are you following me? So it's not just I'm getting in my protein, I'm getting in my calories. It's, is my bulk tracking the way my bulk should be tracking? Am I on a track to gain about 10 pounds over 5 months or whatever your bulk goal is? If you don't have a bulk goal to begin with, you're in trouble. You're just you're randomizing things. And B, if you're not monitoring that and you don't know if you're tracking along your bulk goal and making micro adjustments along the way, this is where the average lifter doesn't pay enough attention. Also, when people go into bulks and they eat like a piggy pig, right? They're eating like a piggy pig. So when you see one of my lifters, one of my clients on my social media at Ben the Barman, and you look at their physique and you see the before and after, and you're like, damn, what's his program? Usually his program is the same as your program. Shocker. The difference between him and you is that you are not nailing your bulks like he or she is nailing their bulks. Because I know these lifters. I know who they are, the guys I post up. And I don't post up all my clients. I barely post up any of them. For every one you see, I have 20 or 30 more I could post up. But, a lot of people don't want to be on my social media, and that's absolutely fair. I wouldn't want to be out there either. But the guys you see nailing it, like Harut, these guys are crushing precision bulks. No excuses. They're on the tracks. So if you want to know the difference, like when you see somebody on social media that makes a dramatic transformation, and you are like, what's their workout? Their workout is pretty close to your workout. The difference is how much attention they are giving to their bulks. And that, more than anything, is the biggest difference maker. All right, dumbbells and donuts. What would you normally expect the difference in working weight to be between leg extensions? Oh, man, it's so hard to say. I mean, I have a leg extension, a leg curl machine here, and I've had many in my home gym. And even flipping the leverage settings or flipping the mechanisms to go in different modes, it's impossible to set any standard. And I hope that doesn't disappoint you, but there is such a wide chasm. There is such a wide gulf, between leverages and setups. And honestly, sometimes I think this equipment wasn't designed by someone that lifts. They might understand limb links and leverages and levers and leverage and stuff like that to the point where, hey, this is too long for someone's legs. This is too short. But the overall flow, the overall general feel of these things can be so vastly different. I have a leg curl leg extension from Titan Fitness that I really like, and I have no affiliation with them. And I'm at 200 pounds for leg extensions. It allows for a lot of weight, which is awesome. I hate machines that you kind of smoothly go up and then boom, you hit a hard wall. This thing is allowing me to progress for a very long period of time, which excites me. That's the way a well-designed machine should be, but it's not always, rarely the case, I would say, in this industry. So leg curls, they're always going to be harder. I don't know. There's no way to answer that question. It's random, arbitrary. Sorry. Big Stein, happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Stein and Yvonne from Team Massive, thank you guys. Sometimes, here's a little secret. I usually go to bed about midnight. And I have this thing, okay, where like I don't really care for Facebook. And for those of you guys that don't care for Facebook, we don't need to get into why. It's just not my favorite social media platform. I prefer Instagram. Because Instagram, people have to post something visually and they can't just go on there and go, hey, I went to the drive-thru and somebody did this and I hate the world, right? People can just talk in a Facebook and it's really easy and you tend to see a lot of talky problem things, you know. It's not as positive. I don't like my headspace. I don't like it as much. Instagram tends to be a little bit more positive. Not always. I guess it depends on who you follow, but you see pictures of lifters and inspirational stuff and people hitting PRs and people eating healthy, reinforcing that motivation. I find Instagram to be a better fit for me. Okay. But here's the thing. I'm getting to a point. This is a Stein story. And Stein, I want you to hear me. I'd say on about 50% of nights, I do lights out at midnight. And I get up about 7:30. I get enough sleep, so don't worry. But one of the things I like to do on this little phone is I like to go in at midnight and check my Facebook memories. That's about the only thing I go on to Facebook for because I have so many lifting videos and so much content that I've cross-posted over the years by default onto Facebook that I like to go in each day or sometimes each night at midnight and see what content I posted on Facebook previously, and sometimes I'll repost it or rethink it. Anyway, here's the point. Many nights I'll see Stein pop on to Team Massive, teammassiveiron.com. Come join us. And he'll say something in the middle of the night. And like he's up early because he's, over the pond, right? And Stein, most of the time I won't say anything because I don't want to engage in a conversation that keeps me up and angers my wife. All right, dumbbells and donuts. Could you run through some cues on form regarding the JM press versus a close grip bench? Close grip bench, it's the same as a bench. Got your elbows tucky. A bench, you're about right here, about wrists over elbows, and it's hard to see. Wrists can be a little bit wider than elbows on a bench, okay? Because when you come down, wrists can be a little bit, you want wrists maybe a little bit outside of your elbows on bench, and you want a little bit of angle here. This is a guillotine press. This is a barrel press, okay? A guillotine press, a barrel press, not perfectly up, but slightly down. A bench is more like here, okay? Close grip bench, whatever your grip width is, you move it in a palm and a little bit of elbow tuck, a little bit more. So here's a bench, palm is within for close grip, a little bit more elbow tuck down. That's it. That's the difference. Now, a JM press, I tend to take my close grip bench width, and I don't worry about where my elbows travel, okay? Not trying to do the chicken dance. I don't worry about where my elbows travel, but I lower it comfortably towards this area. The goal is not depth. It's not to see if you can strangle yourself. The goal is not to see how close to your Adam's apple you can get the bar. That's arbitrary. The goal is to lower it towards your Adam's apple, your neck, and then pop back up, okay, like a close grip bench. That's it. And Stein says, I'm the last thing Steve sees before going to bed. Well, you're the second last thing. I always make sure I kiss my wife before going to bed. What principles do you hold at your core that go against the grain of the accepted norm? Well, I would say most of the principles that I teach are based on history-based training. So they might go against someone's opinion, but they don't go against history. Everything in the massive iron world is us looking at the last 70 years of history and going, what are the commonalities? What are the common lifts? What are the common practices? And then we create a basic framework off of that. That's the massive iron world in a nutshell. Simplification, boiling down to the basics. That doesn't mean minimalism. That doesn't mean boring. Are you hearing me? It means we discern which tools are required and which things are optional. Is rest pause required? No. How do we know? Because in the last 70 years of history, 95% of lifters didn't rely on rest pause. So it's an optional tool. Are supersets required for muscle growth? No. How do we know that? Is that your opinion? No. We know because when we look at the last 70 years of history, we see that supersets are a choice and they can be exercise specific for the lifter. If supersets were used by every lifter for the last 70 years, then it would be a mandatory pillar of success. So that is how we discern the difference between something that is mandatory and something that is a tool. Now, with all of that said, I think there are some things that I personally teach that the lifting community is behind on, simply, and this isn't a criticism of them, it's simply because I coach for a living and I literally get to see at least 500 form videos a week. Literally, I'm not making that up. For those of you guys that doubt me, check out my Instagram. I was voted Coach of the Year by Trainerize, the largest coaching app in the world. 400,000 coaches, and I won. I wasn't trying to win. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm very honored to have won, but they presented something to me on the day I won that I had no idea. They said I had messaged my clients. I'd sent something like 90,000 messages in a year. My clients can also send one form video a day, 7 days a week. Some send more. But I see at least 500 form videos a week. And I'm making a point here. I have a luxury, and I consider it a luxury because I have a large amount of data and information, whereas other coaches don't. Not many coaches do. So I get to see the average lifter, and I get to make determinations based on what you guys are doing as a whole. And here is one thing I have learned. That teaching the squat and deadlift is a lot more difficult than you think. Learning the squat and deadlift is a lot more difficult than you think. The average lifter is struggling. Not all, a high percentage, and it is our job as coaches to get them up to the point where they are getting something out of the squat and deadlift. One of the things that has changed for me over the years was that I would just blanketly advocate squats and deadlifts as a big reliance for beginners and novices. And one thing coaching people in person and on the internet has taught me is that this is leading to a lot of lower back stress. We need to take our time with these lifts. And I will tell you, and this is not a criticism of other coaches, this is simply a reality of their blind spots. And again, a coach with a blind spot isn't a bad person. It's just a person that doesn't know they have a blind spot. And you see this over and over and over again in the comments of YouTube videos and social media. If I tell people to hold back, take their time on squats and deads, I'm not anti-squat and deadlift, but what I do is I teach slow down. Let's work on form. Let's allow the lower back to strengthen. Let's be patient, and then let's run with the lift. And this could take a year or two on squats and deadlifts. I will tell you, there's many of you that think their form is good, but that need some work. I'm telling you that because I care, not because I'm trying to sit on some holy mountain. And the sooner you realize this, the sooner you can start to take more care of that lower back and get help. I'm here to help. I've never turned down a form video, ever. You can send me a form video anywhere. I will do it because that is what I like to do. This is my life's work. I will help you. Never turned away a form video. So where I go against the grain is I'm slower for the squats and deadlifts for beginners. Let's take some time. Let's learn the form. Let's not beat up the lower back. And when I go on video or social media and I'm critical of the minimalist programs that over-rely on squats and deadlifts, you're taking a beginner or novice and you're having him squat 3 times a week. This is the dumbest idea you could possibly do. Now, obviously, that's how Strong Lifts does it. And that'll trigger people. I got great whatever out of Strong Lifts. Okay, maybe you did. You're the outlier. I'm not calling the guy that created Strong Lifts dumb. I'm saying that's about the dumbest idea you could do when you're putting together a novice program. And it really is. Let's put together a minimal program where we over-rely mostly on squats and deadlifts. You want to take a beginner, and people will say, that's a strength program. No, it's not. I was around at the beginning. You can go to their website. And then we're just giving one example. He says on his website, this is the best for hypertrophy. That program aside, the lifting industry, where it focuses too much on squats and deadlifts and not a variety of exercises, I think that's the biggest place where I go against the grain. Because you should be doing machines and dumbbells as a beginner and then doing your barbells as well. All right, let me get a drink. Big JJ. Good morning, big hairy ugly dude and everyone. You say not to do intensity techniques during a cut. Well, I don't say not to do them. I say during a cut, it's probably a good time to pull back a little bit or maybe consider moving away. It's not a rule. What you want to do is you want to really save your big push for a bulk. So you don't want to over push for PRs on a cut. That doesn't mean you don't take PRs on a cut. But the goal of a cut is to get a cut over. And it's not a bad idea to desensitize a little bit, or like if you're on rep 8 of a dumbbell curl on a cut and you know you can get rep 9, get rep 9. I'm always going to get rep 9. What I'm saying is don't go into Grinderville, right? And on intensity technique, it's probably a good idea during a cut to pull back on intensity techniques. Desensitize a little bit, save that big push for your bulk. So a lot of this is personal choice. I'm on a cut and I'm doing some of it. But just take the bigger picture, right? You're not going to be doing a lot of building on a cut. So you want to be able to hold that cut steady and be smart and be safe. Does that make sense? Pringle cake. Morning, Steve. If you know you're going to have a 3 to 6 month busy period of suboptimal training, now wait a minute. I'm going to get hung up on that, but I'll come back to it. Nutrition and sleep. Would you use that time to try and lean bulk, maintain, or cut? I would never waste 3 to 6 months of training on maintaining. You cut if you need to lose fat, but get the fat over with and get back to the bulk. Okay, here's where I'm going to get hung up on suboptimal. Suboptimal is if you're not pushing sets for hard, if you're not training hard, right? Watch what I talked about at the beginning. If you're not training hard, if you are training hard, but you can only, let's say you can only train 2 times per week for 50 minutes, but you can give it, that's optimal. Are you following me? So, if you can get in at least 2 sessions a week and you can push those things hard, let's bulk, let's get some muscle out of it. If you have a 3 to 6 month block where you can only lift 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week, it's not where you want it to be. That's life. You're going to have, over a 5 to 10 year period of time, you're going to have periods where you can't always train the number of days you want. That's not suboptimal, that's life. Okay? What's suboptimal is if we waste those periods and we don't try to bulk at all. Because all of a sudden, we're going to the gym for 3 to 6 months and we're not trying to get anything out of it. That is suboptimal. Are you following? So number one, we have to accept that in life, things are going to come and go, up and down, whatever. We can't always control that, and that's okay. But what we can control is nailing that hard training and nailing that bulk. So let's say for the next 6 months, life kicks me in the balls, and I can only train 2 days a week, and I can only train for 50 minutes. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to absolutely crush those 2 days of training in 50 minutes. I'm going to crush it. Okay? It's not where I want to be. I'm going to get some muscle out of that. I'm not going to put that on hold. Hell no. Does that make sense? If the fitness coaching thing hasn't been fruitful, what do you think you'd be doing to make a living? I was a content developer, editor, content developer, talent recruiter from 2007 to until I got into coaching full time. I helped, and don't go to Muscle and Brawn now. I do not own that website any longer. I sold it. Early in the day, I ran Muscle and Brawn. That became a site that battled with bodybuilding.com for Forum of the Year on several different platforms. We had a really good forum. So I helped build Muscle and Brawn up, my personal site. I sold it. I then got hired by Muscle and Strength when they were a small company. And through content, my workouts there went crazy. Things like the Power Muscle Burn, things like, some of my home gym workouts, bulldozer workouts. I think the original Power Muscle Burn workout has nearly 4,000 questions, comments. But I helped through content and through their forum, Muscle and Strength, grow into a major site. And then because of that, Tiger Fitness brought me on board, and I helped them do the same thing. And really, during my time at Tiger Fitness, I became a very proficient editor. not the best in the world, but if I was not coaching, I would be doing content development and editing of some sort, or working at Walmart, doing the low stress job. Is it good to change grip width on barbell rows? No. Why? I'm not saying that to you, Justin. I'm just saying, like, why do you want to go to a wide grip? You lose all leverage. On a barbell row, like on things like a seated cable row where you can do a normal row and you can do a V grip, it makes sense. But not on a barbell. Not on a barbell row. Doesn't make any sense. No. And I don't know if you're talking about an overhand, going between overhand and the Yates. Those would be two different exercises, and you can't really flip-flop. You could do both of those in a workout, but you wouldn't alternate. Big Joe B, good morning. How's it going? What difference benefit would there be changing grip types for pull-ups? A neutral grip is generally easier for most people. So if you're struggling with a pull-up, you probably want to start with a neutral grip. Okay? This is a neutral grip pull-up if you're struggling. If you can do a neutral grip in the gym, I would do a neutral grip. That's the main benefit. If you are proficient at both, you can use both if you want. You can alternate. The thing about exercises is that every exercise provides a slightly different stimulus because it's a different exercise. You follow me? So, a little bit of variation never hurts. Is it going to be a complete game changer for back development? No. But if you can do a couple variations, do them. Alternate every other week. Your program has me enjoying Leg Day. That's good. Glad to hear it. Enjoyment is a huge part of what we do. I'm not questioning everything I thought I knew about my life. Good. You're having an existential crisis. And is there a pill I can take for it? Yes. You can take creatine. The thing is, if you didn't question yourself a little bit during your workouts, probably ask, am I working out hard enough? Eric, importance of cycling training intensity for getting strong. For getting strong, the importance is minimal. For getting strong to strongest, we need to try new things. We probably need to go to lower reps. Do we need to cycle training intensity? Not generally. I mean, if we're getting beat up on a lift, then we try to cycle something. When someone on Team Massive or one of my clients is getting beat up, we're going to back off the weight a little bit and allow them to heal. And we're going to try to assess, is it a temporary thing? Is it an ongoing thing? Sometimes the connective tissue is getting up to speed. Sometimes the central nervous system is getting up to speed. So we're trying to figure out, is it a temporary thing? Is it an ongoing thing? But you can get huge and strong without ever cycling intensity. Now, the question is, when you get strong and you want to get really strong, do we need to cycle intensity? Well, we'll probably need to cycle our periods. We probably need to have a base building period where we're doing a little bit higher reps, more bodybuilding style, an off season. And then we probably need to have a more intense season. I do with some of my stronger clients concurrent periodization. We might do a 4x3 on bench one week, a 4x6 the next. So we do some concurrent periodization or cycling of intensity every other week, if that makes sense. Is the HIIT training style that Mike Mentzer used effective? No, just guys, we need to give it up. We need to give that up completely. It's way over talked about, way over focused on, and it's way at the extreme end of things. It's not in the normalized thing range. It's just not something. We can learn a few things from it, but the extreme low end of things, we want a normal volume. We don't want low volume. One second. All right. Where are we at? You got a lot of questions. How do you determine the correct seat height on bench and rowing machines? I'm trying to figure out what you mean. And I'm not being dismissive. Maybe you can help me out. A bench is going to have whatever height a bench has. I don't really worry about what height a bench is at. I just bench off the bench. Some of them you're on your tiptoes. I'm not even sure that's what you mean. So maybe you can explain a little bit. And rowing machines just off feel. You just play with it. What feels good? There's no magic answer. There's no correct answer. It's just what feels best. What are the different benefits between Larson press and a regular bench? The benefit is the Larson press teaches you to press without all the tight setup cues that are plaguing the muscle building world and the lifting world in general, strength training world. You should have some pressing in the mix that isn't over focused on arching and leg drive and all this stuff. I mean, most of us don't need that to build a big bench. For most of us, it's an over distraction. So many lifters are so focused on arching and leg drive that they lose the focus on control and just trying to build a big bench with a controlled platform. The only real difference is it's teaching you to bench without that over focus, and it can have some inherent value. When you get to the pretty strong level, you want to work in some variables that are different, some variations of the big lifts, because we don't always know what a weakness is. But by building in variation, strength can build strength. Strength can breed strength, additional strength. And when you're pretty strong on the bench, rotating in variations over time, like floor press or Larson press or close grip bench or banded or, whatever you want to do. We're not jumping arbitrarily every week, but by rotating in some of the stuff, it's going to bring up maybe some super minor weak areas we didn't even know are there. For whatever reason, we don't always know. Anyone that tries to act like they know, right, is lying to you. We don't always know. But by adding in a couple variations, sometimes we see overall improvement. Here's something I learned from deadlifting. I first got into deadlifting around 2007, and I got my deadlift up pretty well. I don't know, like 545. Somewhere in that range, 545, 565. I learned that when I switched to a rack pull, 3-4 inches off the ground, I felt weaker than when I was pulling from the floor. Why? I don't know. What was my weakness? I don't know. I learned that when I did when I tried sumo, I stunk. What did I find out? I was very quad dominant, and on sumo, my quads wanted to buckle in or whatever. They didn't like the wider stance. But I found by spending time on sumo, about a year, I didn't exclusively do sumo. I rotated between sumo and conventional. And then after that, I started to focus on rotating between conventional and rack pull. My deadlift ended up over 700. So we don't always know why, but working in variation when you're pretty strong has no downside. Does that make sense? It can challenge us in new and different ways. How important is it for me to space apart my lifting and cardio? Well, you don't want to do cardio before lifting. And it's not really super important. You can do cardio after lifting. You can do it first thing in the morning. You can do it later in the day. It doesn't really matter. The only thing I do not personally like to do is long extended cardio sessions the day before posterior chain workouts like squats or deadlifts. Other than that, don't overthink it. Why do so many people suicide grip? Well, it's a very small percentage. Okay, first off, very small percentage. For some people, it feels more comfortable. I don't care as long as they're controlling, but you need to know the downside and you need to be smart. If you are doing a suicide grip, and a suicide grip is not having the thumbs around the bar, it's just like this, okay? And you have a spotter and you don't have catch pins, I don't care if your spotter was sent from the heavens. If he bumps that bar accidentally, you get wobbly, he bumps that bar, and you don't have catch pins, you are asking for it. You are asking for big time trouble. You should never suicide grip bench or overhead without catch pins. Never. If you do, you're asking for bad things to happen. Because too many things can happen during a lift. Pin pressing, you can get wobbly. On my first set yesterday, I got to the point where I felt like I was going to black out. I've never felt like that before in a pin press. Why did it happen? I don't know. Maybe because I'm old and ugly, right? Maybe the wheels are falling off the bus. I don't know. We don't know. But you better have catch pins. If not, you better hope your spotter or you don't have a bad day. Idea for a book, printed list. No, not going to do it. Active team can't do it. And here's why. One thing I learned over the years is I used to do a lot of transformation stories for Muscle and Strength, Tiger Fitness. And about 1 in 10 would come back and want their story off the internet. Why? Because a lot of times when somebody was making a transformation, they would use a technique that they would look back on and think to themselves, that was really dumb, right? I made progress despite that. But here I was on the internet elevating it into some grand thing, and I was waxing poetically about how this is the greatest way to eat. And then 5 years later, they're like, that's cringe. And then they would want it off. So I'm never going to post somebody's name. If somebody wants to write, a testimonial that can be taken off the web, great. If someone wants to agree to a testimonial for the book, that's fine. But I don't want to post a bunch of people's random names. Just too many bad things can happen. When you are on YouTube, no matter who you are, no matter how squeaky clean you are, you're going to pick up one or two weirdos that will harass you. And I made a video about this recently about my super stalker. And they see those names, they might start harassing you as well. We ain't doing that. Big Tim, happy Friday. In camp, we sometimes have irregular schedules. which see us being put to sleep and woken up at different times. Tips on forcing myself to sleep. Man, I don't know. A lot of this is just Sitfu, sucking it up. The only thing you can really do is practice good sleep hygiene. Turning out the lights, getting away from your phone, not drinking caffeine, several hours before sleep. But I'd like to say there's some magic involved, but there's really not. Sometimes it's just, you're just going to take a kick in the nuts. Raphael, good morning. Great video on delts. Thank you. And for those of you guys that missed it, you can check it out yesterday's video. Do you think that the traps get that much work while doing delts? Yes, they do. And anytime you're away from overhead pressing and you return to it, you're going to notice your traps are getting a pump, or your traps, there's a high chance your traps are going to get hit. Some people don't feel it because their traps are a strong point relative to their delts. But yeah, the traps do get work. Enough to just be like, no, that's all we need to do. Probably not, no. Chris, happy Friday. How's it going? Big Bob Miller, morning, Team Massive. Steve, when I lose strength during a cut and drop weight, should I change to a lower weight? If you get to the point on like a exercise where your reps are down to 5 or 6, then you might want to drop weight a little bit. I mean, we want to get the cut over with, but once you get down to that point, and you're starting to get above 82.5% of your 1 rep max is probably not a bad idea. Barbell Beauty, PR, happy Friday. She is on Instagram. You can follow her on Instagram. She just did rows with 100-pound dumbbells, and she's a small little feather. All right, guys, I'm going to get a drink, and we will continue on. I'll stay on as long as you guys got questions. So do not be shy. We got a ton in the queue. Big Ted, what is a good rep range for shrugs? I would say bare minimum 8. And no, I don't think there's any benefit of varying hand position. You can widen the grip, but I don't think that really provides any benefit at all. I don't think so. One of the things we do in the massive iron world is you can do power shrugs, obviously. But one of the things we do is we'll do like 8 regular shrugs. We'll hold just for a second. I did these this week. And then after you get to about 8 reps or 10 reps, then we'll finish off with power shrugs. I think that kind of variation is a little bit more important. Well, that's a bad way to phrase it. I don't think it's very important at all to change hand placement. Big Chris, any tips on figuring out which one of my bench or my overhead are giving me a little discomfort in my shoulder? The biggest thing you can do is deload one of them for a couple, 2-3 weeks. Maybe drop weight 10, 15%. That doesn't mean you can increase the volume if you want. We're going to decrease the intensity. And if that doesn't cure it, then you can decrease the volume and intensity. Let's say you're doing 4 sets of 8 on bench, or 4 sets of 5. You could decrease the intensity to like 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10. That's heavy weight intensity. And then if that's too bad, you could drop it to 2 sets. So we have to kind of figure things out a little bit. Is that area improving, or is it holding steady? It can be a long process, but if you have an issue, you have to go through it. I haven't seen a program change between pull-ups and chin-ups in the same session. I want to get chin-ups and pull-ups. I want to get chin-ups back into my program. So I'm going to do 2 sets of pull-ups. Yeah, that's fun. That's fine. Have you programmed? I've done everything. You name it, I've done it. Do I tend to do that for clients? No, not generally, because most people that like to do both a pull-up and chin-up don't do it on the same day. You certainly can. There's no downside. Alan, is it all right to mix your creatine and whey powder? Absolutely. It's not going to provide any downside. If you like to slam it like that, hit it. Good to see you, Steve. Thanks for tuning in. I honestly hate that I reached a point where I'm just bored of what I'm doing in the gym. You are strong enough and big enough where you can reach a point where you can play. You can do whatever you want. It's not unusual where you get bored. And I'm not going to tell you just to arbitrarily come up with a new goal. But sometimes taking on a new physical pursuit, adding in some different variations, a different style of training, rest pause training, maybe adding in some kettlebell work, a kettlebell clean and press, anything, try some new things. Exercise should be fun, man. We need to enjoy it. But when it comes to strength training, we also need to do it for our health, right? So we have to find something reasonably sustainable that we enjoy. I never had that issue of stopping. I stop when I can't push or pull the weight. Good, man. That's good to hear. We were talking earlier about that voice in your head that's telling you to stop. Can a natural reach? Very rare. Yeah, they can, but look, you're trying to create a really crazy hypothetical. It's all happened before. But somebody like this is going to be an outlier of an outlier of an outlier. In competition, it's rare you see somebody bench over 400. And that's one competitions that allow drugs. So yeah, it can happen. Is it rare? It's extremely rare. Check out the powerlifting rankings for tested federations. Okay. I could check right now. Powerlifting results. What are we searching for? Powerlifting rankings. I don't know. Open powerlifting. So I'm going to pull this up on the screen for you guys. Maybe we'll fart around with this for a second. Let me share screen. Let's look. Shall we? Okay, so records. Men fully tested feds. Okay. Raw and reps, we don't care. Men, all ages. Bench. Records. This is records in all years. So is there a way to move it to kilos? I don't know. So here are the records for bench, full power. And you can see there's a dude at 165, bench at 490, a dude at 148, bench at 470. I think this means that there's an Instagram of their. That's the Instagram of the dude. That's all time world record. Okay. 181 weight class, 481. So what did you ask? 200 kilos. It's about 440 something. Yeah, so there's lifters in each class that have hit it, but we're looking at the all-time best. So good luck. You really need a combination of amazing genetics and amazing luck. How can I strengthen my hook grip? Just got to work on it, man. Hook grip, for those of you who don't know, when you're deadlifting, you're doing this thing. I don't know. I don't really care for that sort of stuff. I'm not in the gym to see how – I'm not smashing on anybody's goals. But the only thing you can do is what you can do. You can only work on it. You can work on your grip strength if you want. There's different types of grip strength, okay? There's pinch, okay? You got your static hold grip strength, where you're just holding the bar. You have your crush grip strength. I think my light just went out back there for no reason. That's weird. You got your crush, like your captains of crush grippers. And you have your pinch, where you can pinch one finger in your thumb, two fingers in your thumb, three fingers in your thumb. So you can work on probably your pinch grip or your crush grip. That would only help, I think. Greetings from North. Thanks for tuning in. Big Ernie Peterson, good morning. Happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry if my comment appeared multiple times. Hey, let it rip. No worries. YouTube's funny, so post away. Can I natural reach 200 kilogram? All right, we already tackled that. Good morning, sir. I'm late. Just glad you're here. What is an impressive thigh and calf measurement in inches? So if you're under 18% or 18% under and you're around 26 inches on your legs, 25 and a half, you're doing really good. There are guys above that, but I would say that's really good. 25 and a half, 26 is a good standard. Tom, happy Friday. Steve, thanks for tuning in. Stein, I'm the last thing Steve sees before going to sleep. Some nights, yeah. Tom, it's WrestleMania weekend. I did not know that. Growing up, wrestlers like Goldberg and Triple H had the physiques that inspired me. Built like gods. Who is your body inspiration? Man, there are so many good physiques wrestling-wise when I was younger. Rocky Johnson, Tony Atlas, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Right, so many amazing physiques. Road Warriors. I don't know. A lot of guys like that. Jesse the Body Ventura. Jesse the Body Ventura. That's a bad impression. Big hairy ugly dude. Why do you think 5, 10, 10, 20 works so well? For you guys that aren't familiar, that's my bench protocol. Number one, you're taking a lot of benchers that don't do a lot of volume and you're moving them to a lot of volume. Number two, it's engaging. It's fun. Number three, it really works the central nervous system. The first set will generally feel like the heaviest. The second set will feel better, and then the third set generally feels better. Because we're using the same weight, we're allowing the central nervous system to really wake up and get stimulated. So that by the time we hit that 20 repper, we're fully running with the central nervous system. And just different, man. It's something called the training effect. When you give something to someone that's new, they almost always see an increase in performance. So the training effect has an impact on that as well. Any supplements you recommend for joint support? I'm not big on joint support supplements, meaning I'm a little bit out of the loop. I would check examine.com for the latest information. Might be a bench secret to blow up the bench press using high reps. As we know, this rep range builds muscle. Any reasonable rep range builds muscle, but there's a lot of reasons to it. And I'm not going to pretend it's magic and pretend I know. Some programs just people like more. Also is easy on joints and ligaments. Definitely compared to super heavy training. Has he addressed the allegations yet made against him on X? Who? Who are we talking about? I don't know what we're talking about. Allegations on X. Who are we talking about? Wrestling? Vince McMahon? I don't know. How am I doing 10-minute deadlift blocks? Each time I add 2.5 kilos, but I'm able to hit 28 to 30. Well, on the 10-minute deadlift block, you want to stop about 20 reps. There's really no reason to go above 20 reps. If you are going well over that, I would continue. If a couple of workouts, if you're doing this, you're starting a little bit low, but you're going to catch up quickly. But if this happens like 4 or 5 workouts in a row, you're probably a little bit on the light side. And I would probably add 5 kilos, if that makes sense. All right, so let me get a drink here, guys. We have a lot of questions left, and I'm going to keep rolling as long as we have questions. So keep them coming. I am going to get a drink. Where are we? What rep range do you want to hit? Oops. Someone was having a conversation with Pavel on the 10-minute deadlift. We're trying to hit a cap of 14 to 20. So Pavel said 14. Steve, what's your opinion on heavy lifting on low rep? What's your opinion about heavy lifting with low rep and high set as far as failure? You don't want to do high volume? You do not want to combine low rep and high volume. That's generally a recipe for disaster. But it depends on where you're at in the spectrum. There's nothing magical for hypertrophy, okay? And this is not going to create the most muscle damage. Somebody out there might have said this, but this is nonsense, okay? There's no magical rep ranges, okay? The whole concept is flawed, and we know that by looking at the history of lifting. We know that if we looked at every lifter that's been successful, they've used a myriad of different approaches. But what is the important thing is that they're using a reasonable rep range, and they're pushing sets hard. They're focused on hard training, and they're focused on progressive overload. There's no magic rep range that produces the most muscle damage. Now, this is something I haven't talked about in a while, but it's something we'll talk about now because we're talking about volume, intensity, and frequency. There are three sides to a triangle: volume, intensity, and frequency. Okay? Can I make a triangle here? Maybe not. Volume, intensity, and frequency. Intensity is weight relative to your 1 rep max. So a heavier weight relative to your 1 rep max is more intense. So generally, the more intense you lift, you're going to need to lower the volume. Okay? If you try to do really intense stuff for a lot of volume, really heavy stuff for a lot of volume, you might be able to pull it off for a workout or two, but you might enter overreaching zone. Are you hearing me? But over time, you might pick up, you might overwork the body a little bit. So it's not a good idea to do super heavy work for a lot of volume. Callum, I need your intro music on my gym. You can get it on Spotify. It is actually, we have a Massive Iron playlist. And for those of you on Spotify, you can search Massive Iron Playlist. That song, that intro song is mine. It's called Flack. So it is on there, the extended version. Steve, can you share any personal stories about muscle loss? You're really not going to lose muscle loss. You're really not going to, excuse me, have muscle loss unless you have a long period of time away from the gym. It's very, very hard to lose muscle. Once the body has muscle, as long as you continue to train, even if you add a lot of cardio in, or you reduce training to 2 times per week or whatever, it's very difficult to lose muscle. If you gain a lot of muscle mass, let's say by the age of 35, and you never want to go over the muscle mass you have, you just want to maintain it, it's very easy to maintain that mass. You wouldn't even have to train anywhere near as intense, volume-wise, frequency-wise, whatever. I mean, you wouldn't obviously train like a wet noodle. Does that make sense? Muscle memory is a real thing. In my experience, there have been times when my second daughter was born where I had a couple of years away from lifting, and I got back into lifting, and I had almost my muscle mass back after 4 to 6 months. When a cell is fortified, and I'm no biology expert, but it adds extra mitochondria. And when you get away from lifting, it might, it's like moving the furniture out of a house. That room is still expanded. That house is still expanded. But you just temporarily moved the furniture out, right? Stupid, dumb example, but I think you can hear me, right? Not sure what that is. When my wife runs the heat or the air conditioning in here, it just dries out my sinuses, and that messes with me. I suicide grip on bench specifically because it allows me to press my scapula further down into the press. Okay? That's great. If that works for you, great. I will tell you, if you're getting tension in the pecs, great. That's wonderful. I don't find personally that I need to over-focus on the minor details to get activation. I don't think the average person does as well. So, what rep range would you prescribe chest-supported T-bar rows in? Probably a minimum of 8. Probably starting at 10 and upwards of 12. It depends. Like on some of those chest-supported T-bars, some of them are really brutal. So if you get up around 12, they can feel absolutely brutal. So I would say 10 and adjust from there. Let me get a drink. I'm losing my voice. Gorilla versus Grizzly. Alano says Grizzly. I'll let you guys vote. I would go with Grizzly just because of those claws. But I don't know. I'd like to see 2 out of 3 falls. There has to be a movie out there somewhere. Started doing BTN. What's the best way to unrack the bar? That is a great question. The way I used to do it back in the day was I would set my seat really close to where the bar was racked, and I would get my head under it, and I would lift up and lean back, literally like that, like just a few inches. Was it wonderful? No, it was not fun. That's the best way I found. Now, one thing you can do as well is in the seated position, you can do like a seated pin press, okay? Press the first rep up and then lower it behind the neck. That, in my opinion, is the best way to do it. Now, you're going to have that first rep where you're pushing from the front, from the static position, okay? But you're going to have that on all sets, so that's just going to be part of the game. I would do that because that's the best on the shoulders. That's the best in general. Unrack from the seated pin press position, press up, and then you can start doing your BTM presses. Justin Jones, currently doing 10 by 12 reps for 3 sets, squats, and 3 sets Bulgarian on posterior day. Would it hurt? No, it wouldn't hurt at all. You got 5 good sets for your quads, and that's reasonable for 1 posterior day. So no. I think in general, as long as you're getting 9 hard sets a week for a major muscle group, that's a good 8 to 9 sets. That's a good minimum per week. And you're just talking about 1 posterior workout. What do you think about kids in high school with absurd numbers? It's incredible to watch. Is cheating rampant? Look, man, I've been in the powerlifting world. I'm not a power lifter, meaning mentally I'm not all about powerlifting. I've been in the sport. I've coached the sport. I've coached Special Olympics in the sport. I understand the sport, and I've coached at least 20 people on the platform. So I've been a powerlifting coach. I've been at some major powerlifting meets with some of the guys that were big stars. I've seen and heard stories of people not getting weighed in properly or not getting weighed in at all. I've seen and heard of cheating as far as the weigh-ins, but cheating as far as drugs, I would imagine, but I don't know about high school kids. I don't know. Look, I'm a lifter first and foremost. I've never in all my experience seen a teen abuse drugs. I'm certainly not saying they don't happen, but I've not seen a teen abuse steroids and then produce big numbers. I don't know. I just don't know. Also on Bulgarians, by the 3rd set, it's almost impossible for me to bend. If it is, then play it safe. Yeah, that's fine. Cosmic Bear, I'm trying to reduce volume and only be in the gym 3 days a week. In your book, I saw a 3-day back, shoulder, chest, legs, chest, arms. Yeah, it's a good option. There's many other options. Okay. You can also do upper and upper. You can have 2 uppers sandwiched with a legs and arms in the middle. The upper can be chest, back, shoulders. So you can do 2 exercises each day for chest, back, shoulders. So you can do chest, back, shoulders, twice a week. So you have chest, back, shoulders, and then in the middle, legs and arms. That's an option. You can do also upper posterior, where you rotate upper posterior workouts 3 days a week. So week 1 would be upper, posterior. Whoops, where are we going? Upper, posterior, upper. And then second week, posterior, upper, posterior. Does that make sense? A lot of different ways to do it. If you need any more help, any of you guys need any more help, please join teammassiveiron.com. Okay, we have a community, but you can also ask me questions on a daily basis and post form checks. Thank you, Pavel. I appreciate it. DN, we got 4 questions left, guys. So if you have any questions, please post them up. We're almost done. What's your opinion on DUP versus block periodization, heavy and volume days in a week versus doing blocks of 8s? I don't have any opinion. Okay, because we're looking at different methods and no method is magic. And how do I know this? Because if you look at the strongest people in the world, the biggest people in the world, they all train differently. What they do is use methods that they like, that work for them. So there is some value in doing concurrent periodization, trying 2 different things at the same time. A lot of my clients do that. I have a lot of my clients do that. They don't even know I'm having them do that. That could be having 2 different exercise variations, 2 different rep ranges, like the 5, 10, 10, 20 on bench and the 3, 6, 6, 7, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plus on bench. So, yeah, I want you guys to know, and I'm not copping out, that there is no magic. The magic is trying things. What do you like? Running with it, sticking with it. Zombie prodigy, L-arginine, citrulline, and glutamine. Glutamine is not worth it. Okay. Citrulline, I believe, is decent as a pre-workout. Correct me if I'm wrong. And L-arginine as a basic pump agent, not really. In a pre-workout, maybe, but not to buy individually. You're right. I have long arms and yeah, I mean, everybody's different with limb lengths and leverages. So if it works for you, great. A lot of people, it's not going to work for. I'm not saying it doesn't work for them. What I'm saying is my chest always gets sore when I don't focus on the chest. I don't have to focus on the chest for it to get sore. Does that make sense? Also on a bench press, I don't want to over focus on my pecs, right? I like to just focus on control, keeping it a compound movement and letting it do what it does, if that makes sense. That's just the way I like the bench. How do I increase shoulder mobility? Well, sometimes you can't increase shoulder mobility, and this isn't a popular train of thought. But as you get older, as you get bigger, when you put on girth on your shoulders and your back, it can be harder for you to get your arms. We're doing a dance here. It can be harder for you to get your arms back. That's not always a mobility issue. That can be a bulk issue. Sometimes it's an age issue. I can't get the bar behind my neck anymore for BTNs. I'm smaller than where I was in 2007 to 2012 when I was doing BTNs. I got to a 315-pound BTN seated. I'm smaller now, weight-wise. I just have old people mobility. But if you really want to do the BTN, you really want to work on mobility, I will tell you this. I'm not your guy. I do not know anything about mobility. It is not my passion. The best thing you can do is, if you want to do that exercise, is to find you a mobility expert. Is camber bar squat and barbell squat what the ratio weight? Sorry, no. There's a follow-up here. Is camber bar squat stronger? I don't find so. I have a camber bar at home, and I find it to be about the same weight. But it could vary from individual to individual. I don't think there's going to be a major difference. What frustrates you more, ego lifting with excessive weight versus ego lifting and using lightweight? I will tell you, man, I don't get frustrated by any of it. I'm just being as honest as I can. I'd like to answer your question and be all dramatic and, so on and so forth. The only thing that frustrates me really is guys that aren't controlling the weight and not progressing, because I know they're losing out on gains. BCA is losing my voice. BCAAs really even mean anything when they're inside the whey protein. Well, aminos are aminos, and they're needed by the body. They're part of protein. I think the question is usually the opposite. Are the aminos any good when it's outside the whey protein? I think that's usually the opposite. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the opposite argument. But when you're taking whey protein, you're getting in protein, you're getting in your amino acids. Are you getting in any nutrients outside of that? No, but it's a good tool to fill in the gaps. 2 questions, guys. Get your questions in now if you have any. If not, we'll be hopping off. Any tips for those of us with a ton of experience, calorie, macro counting, who want to move to a less strict way of tracking? Yeah, you have to kind of have a structure to your daily plan. Like, you can't randomly just eat whatever every day. If you're trying to build, we need to watch the scale, right? If you're trying to build, we need to watch the scale. Can the scale move up slightly during a bulk without us tracking calories? Yes, it could. But what helps or facilitates that? Having about the same meals on a daily basis. That doesn't mean you can never eat pizza, never drink beer, whatever. But I rotate between 2 or 3 different meals for dinner, and they're all about 1,000 calories. So I know the lane I'm working in. Does that make sense? So if you have a plan and a structure, like you're eating meal 1 here, meal 2 here, meal 3 here, and they have about the same amount of calories, and the scale's not moving, you can add some calories here, there, elsewhere, and you don't have to specifically track. What's your 3 favorite films, TV series of all time? Aliens, and No Country for Old Men. For films, TV series, Breaking Bad. I would have to say The Last of Us. And what would be the third? Probably The X-Files. We're going to go old school. Just because of the overall impact it had back in the day. There are a lot of bad junk X-Files episodes. But, yeah. No more questions, but once again, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. What's your opinion on protein powders? Look, we have to be really careful about the supplement world. I worked in the supplement world for a long time. I'm not passionate about supplements, but I worked as a content developer and editor. I've seen some crazy things go on. I've seen protein powders with half the amount of protein in them that they were claimed. I've seen companies know that and still sell that to you. Right? If you're going to spend any money in that industry, you better spend it on something you trust, a reputable brand. You can buy a brand at Walmart. These days, there are better brands at Walmart, but you better do your research to make sure. There are studies and looks at some of these multivitamins and stuff like that 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 there's wide variance between capsules. So just know what you're doing. Trinity Powers, thank you. I appreciate that. Why some of the fitness influencers, bodybuilders say they are natural and they are way bigger and muscular and leaner than Arnold. Look, man. Ego, I guess. I mean, I try to stick to the lifting world. I want to help you guys build. I want to help you guys get bigger and stronger. We could ask why on so many things in the fitness influencer world. We could ask why. Maybe they're ashamed. I've seen some people, man, and they're just doing some crazy stuff. Look, I see some bigger booty channels where these women have padding built into their leggings. Padding built in. You can buy that on Amazon. They're doing these big booty workouts and half its padding built into their leggings. I guess it's kind of asking, why is half the world nuts? Right? I wish I had the answer for you, man. I would tell you, I'm all about lifting. I'm all about lifting. And I'm all about helping you guys get results. And the older I get, the only thing I can say is people are more and more crazy. Thanks, Ernie. Appreciate it. Big, hairy, ugly dude. Love your Q&As. Thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you supporting me. And your questions. We learn from every question. Is doing 15 to 20 reps. No, it's not always. It depends. I mean, anything can work as long as it makes sense for you on a lift. Does that make sense? I wouldn't do it all the time because certain lifts, your lower back's going to give out first, like on deads or squats. Your lower back could take a beating. Modern muscle groups could take a beating. I wouldn't do it as a bread and butter, but occasionally, yes. Any supplements you recommend beyond zinc, magnesium, ashwagandha, fish oil, vitamin B12, K, and D? I take B12, D3, and K together. Fish oil, ashwagandha. I started to take creatine gummies. So I got B3, B12, D3, fish oil, ashwagandha. I also take a general multivitamin. And there are other than that's a good baseline. And Zombie said fruits, meats, and potatoes. Potatoes, great choice to add to the diet. Animal-based, plant-based, get your taters in. You're good to go. And milk. He said milk. I like to get in some cheese. I like to throw in a little bit of cheese. Not a lot. Each day I eat dry cheese like Asiago or Parmesan. A little bit just to get that extra, boom, 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 calcium and extra stuff like that. My apologies. No, man, that's what we're here for. Let it rip. Carlton, good afternoon from the road. Thanks for tuning in, my man. Just finished watching Breaking Bad for the third time. Man, I watched it through twice. I won't even lie. The first time by myself and the second time with my wife. She had never heard of it. And we watched the entire season. All right, guys, a couple things before we go. Please don't go anywhere. Number one, I got a workout app coming out soon. We're going to be in alpha. This thing is top notch. This thing is built for lifters. Okay. It's going to be called Mass Forge. We've been working on it for a year and we're almost at alpha. This thing is going to destroy everything else out there because it's from lifters. It's going to be for you, lifters. It's not a general population app, right? It's going to have, my developer already said people are going to be telling us that we're underpriced for what they're getting. This is going to be like anything out there. So stay tuned. Also, I'm working on my book, Massive. I'm at about 22,000 pages. Stay tuned for that. That's going to probably be around summer. And I would appreciate you guys following me on Instagram. I would love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram. I've been the Barman. What else? If you haven't checked out my website, what am I doing here? You got to get that off. Check out my website, superlivingtoday.com. I have a book called The Massive Collection. It's got about 354 pages. It's a PDF of all my workouts. There's a workout tab over there if you need workout ideas. If you don't want to buy the PDFs, that's fine. Almost every one of those workouts is here for free, okay? So if you need workout ideas, you can come over to Team Massive Iron, teammassiveiron.com. And a lot of that stuff is over there for free, okay, for free. So also if you need coaching, I'm pretty booked up right now. But you can head over to superlivingtoday.com, check out the coaching tab. And yeah, that's about it. So we got a few more questions. Big Dan White Jr., what vitamins do you recommend to take? Just went through those. D3, B12, fish oil, ashwagandha, a multivitamin, creatine. Did I miss anything? Any dating advice in a world and culture that changes so rapidly? Look for someone being real, right? Because if they ain't real, right? They ain't real. You don't stand a chance. That's number one. Number two, look for someone driven. Okay. You want somebody highly motivated, even if it isn't someone that's motivated in the things you like. You find a woman that's passionate about painting or bicycling or something, right? So you don't even have to be passionate about lifting. What you want is someone that doesn't want to sit their butt on that chair all day long, because you are a lifter and you're motivated. I don't care how good the sex is. When she's sitting there on the couch or he's sitting there on the couch and you're out wanting to do stuff, you want to look for someone that wants an adventure out of life, that's highly motivated. Okay? Number 3, you want somebody that encourages you to be your best. Okay? Positive. Encourage you to be the best. So those are big things. All right. Chris, feel free to like the video. Absolutely. Matt, I don't think I've asked this before, but how do you wind up in Ohio? I was recruited work-wise. During my time in Massive Muscle and Strength, I developed a reputation for helping sites grow, because I helped Muscle and Strength grow, and I helped my own site, Muscle and Brawn, grow through content development. So I was known as one of the tops in my position in the industry, and they actually recruited me. Headhunter, they paid for my move, paid for me to come to Ohio and help them do the same thing. All right, guys, we're almost at 2 hours. Thank you again for following along. Head over to Team Massive Iron right now and join us, and I am out of here.
It's not almost over. It's not almost over. You're not almost there. You're not almost there. You're not almost there.